Welcome back to Coaches Exploring Clarity. And this week we have a special guest, Sheila O'Grady, who's joining us, a longtime student of Jamie Smart and somebody I've had the pleasure of being in courses with for the last couple of years. And she's joining us for Chapter 21, Living a Life You Love. And I'll start by reading the quote from Joseph Campbell, mythologist, writer, and lecturer. "We must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us. The old skin has to be shed before the new one can come." That quote really resonates with me because I had a 20 plus year career in the grocery business, retail analytics, and I feel like stepping out of that and into this coaching realm literally felt like shedding an old skin. And so when I can almost, when I read that, I almost get like a sensation across my body of shaking off that old life and stepping into this life that I'm in now.
Actually, when I read this morning, Elaine, it took me back to our conversation yesterday, so it wasn't which won't be shared here. So it wasn't as much a sensation of shedding skin or shaking off an old life, but as often happens in our conversations, Elaine and I, we think or we will reference something will come up and we'll, like I said yesterday, or maybe this was last week. Oh no, Elaine's like, oh, there it is. And I'm like, oh, I thought I kicked that to the curb. And there it is. So it's something, it feels like layers of, I looked at this that way and I thought I dealt with that. So there are all these layers and about the old skin thing where I can see there are still elements of my thinking and behavior and habits that are still there. It's like I see things much more quickly. Sometimes they still bug me enormously, but I can get over it more quickly. So there's something in that about the layers and just all the different elements of us sort of evolving. That's what, I don't know why that came up for me today, but that's what came up for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like we have many layers to shed, and I completely get that. But the whole feeling of this chapter to me is about newness and freshness and just seeing things as they are, as opposed to how we would normally see them based on our old thinking that we bring in. And it is that whole freshness that was, even the title of the chapter, Living a Life You Love, it's not the life, it's a life, just implies to me the infinite possibilities rather than my previous thinking would be that there's a right life and I've got to get it right and I can do it wrong. And don't get me wrong, that comes up over and over, but you see, actually, no, there is another way of looking at this. And it's not about getting it right, missing out on something. It's just about the experience and seeing something new in that moment and enjoying it. And that's kind of the lightness of the chapter that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I love that, Sheila, and it sort of leads into the next bit, the idea that the idea of sort of winning the unwinnable game. Because like if you keep kind of moving, well, this is the only skin I've got, then there isn't even a game to win. You've lost from the very beginning, kind of thing. But the idea is it's something about as well. I don't know if you all played a game, or maybe you still play it. I used to use it a lot in my language classes. Lateral thinking. Have you ever played any of those games? You get the puzzle that you have to resolve that is just ridiculous. Like there's a guy in the lift and he every day goes out and every day he presses the little button at the bottom and he goes to work and then he comes back. But when he comes back, he always takes the stairs and you've got to work out why that happens. and he's not a fitness maniac or anything like that. So it goes on. It's the same thing, but we keep the idea that we keep playing the same game. And if we don't have, a new skin to wear, or a new perspective, or a new something that is not the opposite of what it looks like I feel bad, I want to feel good. I feel, I'm fed up, I want to feel happy. It's never the opposite. It's lateral too. And that sounds to me like, the unwinnable game is, well, hey, great. The only answer is, well, I'm not going to play by those rules. I'm going to play my game.
Yeah.
Which, to me, sounds like a real winner, and a wonderful place to maybe grow that skin. And maybe even know that the skin you can, just like a snake, it sheds it multiple times and will do until its dying day. Yeah. And I guess that's what change is all about, transformation, change. As you grow, the skin grows with you as well. You can, it contains something else as life evolves.
Part of that metaphor that just occurred to me as we were talking was that, the shedding of an old skin, the new skin is already there. Like it's coming from within. And that's the same as what the message of this chapter is, the search is over, and that kind of stuff. I do have to shout out this Star Trek reference because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but also a huge Star Trek fan. So the fact that Jamie included the Star Trek reference is just perfect for me. But yeah, I often think, to me, it's like analogous to almost this whole 3 principles thing as being a new paradigm for life. It's like, I say we, but for me, there's a certain way I thought I had to live my life, and there were certain rules to follow, and society says this is how it works. And for me, a lot of it was focused around this whole notion of working my ass off till retirement, and then I can start enjoying myself. And unfortunately, I'm still a long way away from retiring. But even if I was retired, I'm not sure I'd be wanting to do anything different than what I'm doing right now, anyway. Which is a lot different than the way I felt for most of my career. So it's that you don't have to play by the rules or the perceived rules, and those are all made up anyway. I know in the last chapter we talked about a compliant workforce, but it's the same kind of thing, right? Like all these societal rules and boundaries that have been created are just made up. We can channel our inner Captain Kirk and break the rules.
Yeah, and the funny thing about all that as well is we do pick up all the societal rules and all the rules when we've been growing up, going through school, the workplaces that we've all worked in. But if you're to look at everybody, we've all taken on different bits of those rules. We haven't even all come up with the same rule as such, which just is adding to the idea that they are all just made up. And to me, it's like we've created, or in my mind, I've created a huge matrix, I see it as a huge database in my mind that I've created, taken all these things that have happened in an experience and made them a cause and effect. And a whole rule system of, if that happens, this happens. And seeing that just lightens a whole lot, that you have, that I've done that, and so has everybody else. And everything we just see so differently. But in a moment, your rules come in, but you've got the opportunity to think, does this rule serve me, or do it, so you can keep it or not. And that, it's the not knowing that that's possible that creates the heaviness, isn't it? When you're caught up in thinking, this is it. But I just see this huge database that I've got. I see in databases. I did computer as my degree, so I do. I kind of got that sort of mind. So that's where I've made all these tables of things and experiences that all I've put meaning to now, obviously, that come up. But it is the fact that we've all created our own version, and we will keep doing that forever.
There is, yeah. The next piece on 226 here, I was in a conversation with someone this morning, and this whole notion of the moment we think there's somewhere to get to, that there's better than here, we've stepped out of our sanity. And the person I was with this morning was sharing some of the things that she has brought, and messages and rules from her childhood, and the thing that, even as she said it out loud this morning, she's like, oh, I still do that. There's a thing that she is still seeking. And she said last week she was about to do it again, because she thinks if she has that next thing, that will validate me, that will make me look this way. And her husband's like, hold on a minute, you're going to pay all that money to do that to make you feel like what? And she was like, oh yeah, it's not going to do it, is it? Yeah, so there's just that, and again, she will do that again, no doubt, no doubt. So it's that, see it, but it's likely that we continue to fall into the trap, isn't it? It's out there somewhere. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's been the biggest change for me in the last 18 months or so, is that, like, in this block called The Search Is Over, the idea of have it here and have it now. Like, I don't need to be making a certain amount of money or have a certain number of clients, or I don't know, the weather doesn't even have to be a certain way. Yeah, like I've really bought into, or realized that the happiness is already there. Like it's at the core of who I am. And when I let my negative thinking or contaminated thinking kind of fall away, I'm just like, my natural state is to be happy. And I couldn't tell you how many people that are close to me, people that I haven't seen in a while, I've had so many comments about how happy I seem. And I usually make a joke about, well, it's not just seeming happy, I am happy. Like it's not a front or a show or whatever. So yeah, that's been a big change in my life in the last 18 months.
Yeah, I find that a difficult concept, not being happy. But the concept that if the tendency for every single one of us, to go to get therapy, get help, get into a lot of thinking, even by yourself, alone in your room kind of thing, when things aren't working. And the idea that, oh, well, I'm happy, kind of, well, to me, sort of contradicts a little bit the sense of clarity, or the place that you find yourself in when you have clarity and when you have no thinking and there's no contaminated thoughts. So I guess part of the misunderstanding for a lot of us is thinking that we're seeking happiness in the way that's defined by math thinking. So, like, I know what you're talking about, Greg, but it's not really happiness that we're looking for. And I'm going to whiz straight to my end of the book. On the scale, I guess we're looking for the neutral position where we can't apply anything that can alter our natural state of being. So that includes happiness in the way it's interpreted in today's world, of course. So I think there's kind of we sort of needed to regulate exactly even what we say. to point people in a direction of what it is that we're really looking for. Is it really called happiness? And something's coming, and I can't remember the quote, but it's something about that Sydney Banks says, we're looking for the silence. In the silence, that's where we're going to, rather than happiness. And I think I think a lot of people get very, very confused over what it is they're actually looking for. And they think it's happiness, but again, they think that. But they don't feel what it is. They don't have an experience or an awareness of the experience of when they're at their very best.
Yeah, I completely get that. Because for me, I would say the place, for me, the underlying place is a silence. And it's not, I'm in a silent room, I could be in the noisiest room, but it's that inner lack of chatter. Because for me, the freedom is from that, taking any notice of the chatter, because you never get rid of the chatter. But it's your relationship with it and realizing that you can be with that and still be at peace in the silence. And I think that the irony of that is, or it's not ironic really, but when you're caught up in that, who you think you are, and you're looking for the happiness or the silence or whatever you want to call it, when you're actually in that, the idea of you isn't even there, so they don't even know it, if that makes sense, because it's an idea of who you want to be. So that's how, for me, it makes more sense. It's recognizing when you're not there, because when you're there, you're just there. And it's that, I could get what Elaine said, because if people haven't really experienced that space of pure, it's not that like, because I think everybody experiences it, you don't recognize it or think it was a natural place to be. And it's that knowing of that space, and that you will return to it, isn't it? Or that not even returning, because you're just always there, apart from when you get caught up in your chatter. And yeah, people can interpret happy as being having that thing they're seeking rather than who they already are. Yeah.
That's what I was getting from what Elaine was saying in terms of this misinterpretation of what happiness is. It's like it's associated with objects or material things or whatever. I had one client who totally stressed out and overwhelmed at work, but when he goes on vacation, like as soon as his feet touch the ground off the plane, he's totally at peace. And I tried every way to Sunday to get him to see that that's coming from within him. He doesn't actually have to be in Costa Rica or in the Bahamas or whatever to feel that way. He could feel that way here in Toronto in the middle of winter. But for him, it's almost like he won't give himself permission to experience that unless these certain conditions are met. Anyway, he's had some glimpses of it, but it's been an interesting onion to peel back for him. And it reminds me of this part where, and I always laugh when I hear this story from Jamie about when he starts a program and he says, you can have the life you want this weekend. And people start panicking, going, no, that's too soon.
No time.
maybe next month when I have things slow down a little bit.
When I'm in Costa Rica.
Yeah. Or even like, well, that's not possible because I've got to kind of work on that.
Yeah.
I can't have it today. I've got some work to do before I get there.
It's like I imagine like you show up to go on a trip or a journey and you've got all your luggage packed and you're ready to get on the bus or whatever. And then Jamie would come out of the bus and say, okay, folks, guess what? we're already here. People like, look, how can we be here already? We haven't even gone anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah, and I didn't want to go on holiday with you anyway.
Yeah. The last part of that search is over box I highlighted says there's nothing missing. You were born whole and you still are whole. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty powerful sentence right there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because for me, I have an easier time of seeing that in other people, or, when I read that, in particular, I think of my kids, and it's easier to think about it for them than it is for myself sometimes. But yeah, it's a great reminder.
I'm finding that, just thinking, coming from that word permission, that's the word that, Greg, that comes up a lot in my life. And I realized that unconsciously, so talking about 3 principles, let's say, as I read more and more, and it all makes like a hell of a lot of intellectual sense. Of course it does, doesn't it just? And then when we step out of this nice little foursome get together, and my cat's just done something terrible and all the rest of it, and you're like, oh God, this is just a pile of nonsense, it's not true. And I realized that the very, search for that place that apparently we're all looking for me, is in part, or at least before I sort of got into this journey, but right at the beginning, and the idea of Jamie, the search is over sort of thing, is actually having permission, or giving permission to yourself, to be able to investigate that thing that are the 3 principles that contain, let's say, they are the container in a linguistic sense, of the container of what it is that we're looking for. And I'm wondering, how many people in this world, are waiting. I guess it goes back to our conversations about sovereignty and ownership, waiting for the permission just to be themselves. And how dreadfully misleading and mistaken that is. Where somehow we have got that famous umbilical cord attached, 100% of the time, and we never let it go. And it's not even about attaching it to yourself, because I think Jamie once explained, it's about just letting it go. We don't even need it.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure we've all been where we've had, I'm the sort of person who doesn't, which was some of the first things that I realized that I'd gone through life doing that about me and everybody else, and still do, don't get me wrong, but it's seeing that you do that's the important thing. And I always thought that spirituality was something really high and wasn't me, and I couldn't possibly be a spiritual person. I didn't even look into it or read anything about it. I really, truly thought that those sort of books and the words in them weren't for me. One thing, they didn't mean anything to me. Somebody could say the most beautiful thing about encasing yourself in your mind and all the rest of it. It meant absolutely nothing to me, because as far as I was concerned, I was living in reality in a world that was the way I thought it was. So people saying stuff like that, really, I just thought special people can hear what I've mentioned those words, not me. Weird, but you can tell yourself any story, can't you, and believe it. That's the thing.
It's like that's for them. That's for the other people. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm too logical for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, and you know, then we'll say something, well, it's all right for them because they've
Mm.
got A, B, C, and D out there.
Yeah.
You know, it's all right for them.
Yeah.
They've got it. They were able to spend the money and do the thing. They were able to, you know, it's
Yeah.
all right for them. They were born into a something family. It's all right for them. And so you stay in your little trap, in your little rabbit hole, and stay there. So, yeah.
I highlighted this whole example of the contrast between the two people going for a job interview,
Mhm.
one with a
Yeah.
very busy mind and one in a nice, calm, clear state.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious which one would get the job or perform better in that situation. Yet I know my own experience has been kind of fighting with myself not to be that busy-minded worrier. You know, I used to tell myself things like, you know, especially for a job interview, like, I'm going to talk about myself. Like, nobody knows myself better than me. So what am I worrying about? Kind of stuff. Anyway, this one really struck chord with me because I have a product called an interview simulator to help people prepare for job interviews. So this one in particular really jumped out at me. He's like, oh yeah, I could include something like this in my material. And I like the point Jamie makes about our psychological immune system exists to guide us into a natural, enjoyable experience of life. And I know there's a whole chapter on the psychological immune system earlier, but it's just a great reminder that I often forget that we have such a thing.
Yeah.
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 What
Or we interpret it back to front. So we think it means the opposite to what it's just saying you're caught up in your thinking, and we think, no, there's something important in here. Think more, think more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elaine pulled me up on that yesterday. Yep, thank you very much. I was like, no, I have to understand it. I have to get it. I have to get that. I have to get that. And she's like, no, not so much. Oops.
Yeah. And you say you practically underlined the whole, you know, the whole paragraph, 2-3 paragraphs of the example. I underlined it really, because these words just jumped right out of me again, because my habitual way of thinking is always sort of hierarchical. So when Jamie says, okay, so when they go to the job interview, contrast is huge. One is clear-headed, relaxed and alert, while the other is feeling anxious and insecure. Okay, then he goes on to say, one listens deeply to the interview and starts feeling connected to them. Like that. And I'm going, what? Yeah. Isn't it the job interview that does the doing? Like that's like horribly wrong. But I mean, we know it's so right. And how perhaps even connected in some way to the chapter before on leadership. Again, although you're the one that wants the job, you're the one that's kind of underneath the interviewer. And, you know, please give me a job kind of thing. And I'm going to show up my very best and try to do my very best. And you're going to judge me and assess my ability, my qualification. Like that would be my take a few years back. And like just that, you know, that is just stepping into your, you know, again, sovereignty, ownership. Like, and oh God, of course, you know, you don't have to convince anybody of anything. You don't have to play to anybody else's wishes, desires, or anything. You do it. And how you do it through the connection that you make. Suddenly, sort of the whole thing just tipped round in the other way.
That struck me. That was the only bit on there in that paragraph that I highlighted as well, because what that said, it struck me the same way. It was like, well, imagine first of all, if everybody knew that that was available to them, what a load off. I mean, what a load off. But then the next thing I thought was, well, in and of itself, if you told someone you're going for an interview, there's nothing to do, they'd be like, but to be connected and to not have all the crazy thinking and to not be trying to prove anything, wow, it's like, it's polar opposite of how we consider that experience, how we have been, again, conditioned to consider that experience. And super, cool to link it back to the leadership thing, because it's it's almost the hierarchical and the proving yourself. And
It's funny because go ahead, Sheila.
Sorry.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, and also, even though you're saying it's hierarchy, I can't even say hierarchy in there. In my corporate life, carried out lots of interviews as the interviewer, and you can get just as much up in your head thinking that more nervous than the person you're interviewing.
Absolutely.
As well, from not having that connection. So it works on both sides, despite the fact you think there's some sort of a hierarchy in there. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
This last week has been free agent frenzy in National Hockey League and National Basketball Association here in North America, and it's such a contrast to this idea of the hierarchy is reversed, right? Because the players are the ones with the power, and the teams are basically chasing them. And I mean, there's guys signing ridiculous deals, like 5 years for $250 million and stuff. But I think of the player. One of the differences, obviously, there's all kinds of differences. One of them is the player knows what they're worth. They know who they are, what they bring to the table. A regular person going for a job interview is more worried about what the company thinks, or I need this job to pay my bills, or things like that. Like, they're not focused on who they are and what they have to offer. Anyway, I see a big contrast. And of course, I love contrasting sports to real life. This next few pages here, I just thought, it's like, how did I miss this the first time I read through the book?
Me too.
Because this is like gold. These next few pages is like, I almost want to like rip them out of the book and like post them where I can see them all the time, because it was a fantastic, almost like a checklist to go through: appreciation, gratitude, ease off on trying to figure it out, which you just talked to, Lynn, a little bit. Understanding a rational goal, pause when agitated, look to the source. You don't need to be vigilant. Be kind to yourself. I put an asterisk beside that one. Lighten up. Allow wisdom to guide you. I was like, holy cow, this is like the whole program in 6 little paragraphs.
Yeah. It is.
And it all made like perfect sense now that I read it again and realized that why didn't I see this before, sort of thing. And it also, again, what struck me was like you're sort of, even better than average guru. They'll start from these concepts. And it struck me that unless you have at least or at least for me, unless what I had or have not had, a basic understanding of like where all this actually comes from, which like it's already there inside you kind of thing, it wouldn't make sense for me as your average guru kind of thing to start trying to teach people to do that. But that's what a lot of, in the mass media, in the general sort of meditation sort of field and mindfulness and that kind of thing, they try to get you on board here. But there must be a different, at least for me, it's because I'd had a different understanding and a different starting point that now it seems perfectly logical, and it's just kind of obvious that these, what are they, 6, 7 things, 8 or so, and they actually, they're kind of so obvious. Well, yeah, we've got that, haven't we now? Kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
and again, sort of great appreciation to Jamie for just setting out the whole book the way he's done it, because it's pretty genius, I think.
Yeah.
What he's done there.
Yeah, this was almost like a bow, putting a bow on it.
Yeah.
And also, I completely agree with what you've said, Elaine, because if you just gave somebody a book on gratitude and said follow that, forcing that as a tool to use just doesn't do anything for you. Because I mean, trying to think of something you're grateful for when you haven't realised,
when the circumstances are totally against you, what grateful for what? I'm in prison, I'm do this, that, and the other, and I've just been I've got certified total loony. Grateful for what? You must be joking, mate.
Yeah, I completely.
You're not going to teach me any gratitude. Like, excuse my French, Greg, you can cut this out. Like, go to hell. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's just as bad as telling somebody it's just your thinking. And you a slump on the nose, maybe, but
yeah. So yeah, well done, Jamie, with that. I mean, brilliant.
I love I really, really love the lighten up piece, because sometimes we just forget. But it's just sometimes things feel pretty serious, and I loved that came there. We need to lighten up.
Yeah, I love the quote at the beginning of that one. Oscar Wilde famously said, "Life is too important to be taken seriously."
Yeah.
And it's funny because I probably would have heard a quote like that and thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like there was it was meant to be humorous, but no, it's actually like sound life advice.
It is.
Like, it's not a joke at all.
Yeah. To me, that whole lighten up, because for me, without knowing where your experience comes from, there is a heaviness to life that you don't realise is the heaviness that you're creating from your thought. And life does feel heavy, and generally like you've got a backpack on or whatever else. And the whole, to me, the whole lightening up is the freedom of thought. It is that lightness that comes from realising that, oh, actually, this is maybe not the most pleasant thing in the world I'm going through at the moment, but without all that extra woe is me and this shouldn't be happening and why is it happening, without all that, it's so much lighter and easier in life. And it's that, for me, is the beauty, that it's not about the circumstance and what you're going through in life, it's how you're thinking about it. And it's hard to see that when you're going through bad things, when you don't have the understanding. It's impossible to see that. You just think life's dragging me down, basically, don't you? It's that, rather than my thinking about life is what's making this harder. Yes, there's circumstances going on that I maybe wouldn't choose, but I don't need to make it any harder, really. Yeah.
I guess again.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Lynn.
No, you're good. You're good.
Very quickly, just again, I look at the words and play with the words, but I guess here again, it's sort of an understanding that life, or at least again for me, if I just replace that with the word, it's about being. Because again, if we say, how many times my sister used to say to me, "Oh, for God's sake, Elaine, get a life." She'd say that to me, and I can remember that. But I think, well, what does that mean? Do you know what I mean? Because what you've got, it doesn't sort of really look very good. So I don't know which life to get, kind of thing. or on the other side, which again, because you don't know which, because you've got something out there that you're choosing from, rather than the living bit inside of you, the being bit, life in the sense that what you are living, but it's inside, it's not outside again. So again, even just to point out, how Jamie's dropped this in after, we through the reading, we've reached a certain level of, and dare I say, understanding that doesn't involve too much thinking. It's an understanding and awareness and embracing of a feeling or a realization or an insight. So like the, Oscar Wilde's quote can be taken on board as like, this is really important rather than serious kind of thing. Yeah.
The pause when agitated one caught my attention too, and it made me think of the rumble strips metaphor, right? And just recognizing when we're in an agitated state, and that, if you realize that those are rumble strips. So I'll give you an example. So that last week I was helping my sister demo a bunch of stuff at her house to get spray foam insulation done, and the guys came in and did it, and it's insulating her garage. Well, inside her garage is the ductwork that takes the heating and cooling to the upstairs of her house. Well, they didn't insulate the ductwork, so she's in a big fight now with the insulation company. And I'm her go-to kind of like talk her off the ledge person, right? So she's been phoning me every time she's interacting with this company, and I have to help her realize, like, these are just rumble strips. Like, it's not the end of the world, and a lot of these things I could check off as things I'm pointing her to in our conversation to, lighten up, pause when agitated, being kind to yourself because she's blaming herself for their screw up, all this kind of stuff. So it's been quite interesting.
The pause when agitated thing, that's something through all of this learning, understanding, whatever we want to call it, for me, has really helped me enormously to see for myself in that moment when I could just get so mad about something that, and I've had this, it's like I'm in training. I'm literally training myself to do that because I'm getting much faster at it. Is to stop and go, what is it that's really bugging me? Why am I feeling this? It always starts in my tummy. So I notice that. It's like I notice, oh, something's coming. What is it? And it's just been absolutely fascinating. That started for me actually a long time ago. I still have a book here. There's a book on my shelf called Time to Think by Nancy Klein. I don't know if any of you have read that, but one of the and it must have been 20 something years ago I read that. And one of the examples, if I won't get it correct, but she gives an example of driving and getting agitated with other drivers. Well, really, what is the point? You so can't do anything about it. And I remember way back then thinking, oh, I'm in the car and I'm getting mad. I'm actually making myself mad. They can't do it. That was an absolute revelation for me that other driver could not make me mad, because of course I thought he was making me mad by being an idiot, by not using his signal, by not. So that I still remember that from all those years ago, that, wow, oh no, it's me doing it. So it's still in all now to go, okay, I need to take a breath. I'm getting a bit annoyed about something, what's going on. So I love that. And I use that with loads of people. I don't tell them to pause when agitated because I don't know what they would do to me. But normally at least take a breath is quite a handy one. Yeah, I like that.
The other one that really jumped out at me was, you don't need to be vigilant. And I think because of my analytical nature and all the jobs I've done, very process oriented and very analytical, I thought life was like a chess match. Like I always had to be thinking 10 steps ahead. And if I was doing trying to present or sell something that worked to management or whatever, I had to I had to ahead of time think of all the different responses they would be able to give me and have rebuttals to each one of them. And this pathway to success was to have figured out all the possible permutations and combinations and options. And I see that I taught my daughter this, and it's one of the things that causes her a lot of stress and anxiety is that she's very similar to me in that way, trying to figure it all out all the time. And it's exhausting. So this is like, oh, I don't need to do that. Whew,
Yeah.
somebody
should have told me that.
Yeah. Somebody should have told me.
Yeah. Out of all of those, actually, the understanding is a rational goal.
Mm.
The fact that anything that you really understand, once you understand it, is just so much easier, because most disagreements or miscommunications probably come from the fact that both parties or whatever have got a completely different understanding of what's going on. And just that whole leveling the playing field by just realizing that we're just both seeing it differently, or we're both got different ideas or what. That's just like a place to start from, but we don't, do we? I know in myself, if I'm really caught up in really believing something and somebody else has got the opposite, there's just no rationale in there, is there? It's like, it just gets more and more chaotic as it goes on. So that, just the understanding is just paramount, really.
Imagine how many marriages would be saved.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And many other things besides, we've all talked about all this before, wars and all sorts of things. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The old Stephen Covey habit 5: seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yeah.
Definitely. But without the understanding, they're just words, nice words. Because I've read the Stephen Covey book many times, but obviously didn't get the same understanding from it that you've obviously got anyway, even before this. But I think sometimes words are just words, aren't they? Without some sort of meaning coming, or feeling, or some other understanding coming through at the same time. Yeah.
I think that's been our experience with doing this program, like having read this book already once through and then doing it again. It's all the same words that we already read the first time. And we're seeing it so much deeper and clearer as we go through it again, and then as we unpack it and discuss it amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
The other one that I highlighted here that I think is, if I was forced at gunpoint to choose one, this might be the one I would choose, which is be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, I not to keep bringing it up, but I screwed up last week. I didn't record the session. Well, I could have spent the whole week beating myself up, and I did spend maybe 5 minutes beating myself up, but it went by pretty quick. And just, the more I remind myself of this, being kind to yourself, the easier life seems to get. In the first sentence there, if being hard on yourself was going to work, it would have worked by now.
Oh man, I highlighted that. My highlighter was not heavy enough to highlight that sentence. Seriously, I was like, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. No. That really speaks to me. We just had guests over the weekend who are part of my husband's family, but I don't know them. So it's the first time I've ever spent with them. And if they told me once over the weekend, they must have told me 3 million times how kind and thoughtful and generous and other amazing things. And they left, and I was like, I really have to start being kinder to myself. I'm really good at that for other people. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? What we do to ourselves. And you said earlier, Greg, on another point, that you're so quick to see things in other people, and I am too. And I really can see kindness and goodness, and I never, even people that I don't like very much, and there are people that I don't like very much, I'm human, but I wouldn't be unkind, and I wouldn't be, because it's not who I am. And I'm like, well, even to those people I wouldn't, but it's okay for me to do it to me. No, that is not okay. It's just not okay. Crazy.
And it's and I think Lynn and I actually mentioned this yesterday. I think
We did.
talking of being kind, and it was and I think I was mentioning to Lynn that on our weekend course, you know, remember the exercise that we did about taking your own medicine, and this is one medicine that we really should be taking, and how often we just don't do it. You know, we're great coaches, we're doing lots of good in the world, we're helping people right, left, and center, and then we've just kind of forgotten about ourselves. Well, what about a bit of kindness and medicine like that for ourselves, and how often we forget to do that? Caught up in everybody else's, you know, foibles, let's say. I think the whole
I'm writing that under the chapter, Elaine. Under the chapter, I'm writing take your own medicine.
Yeah, I love that framing of it. Awesome.
Me too. I do.
Also, the idea of taking your own medicine, often we think of it, oh, you know, you don't speak to me like that. You know, you ought to, you know, get back sort of the nastiness that you've just spat out. Usually it's kind of given in that sense. But the idea of actually, you know, this is wonderful medicine. It's not poison. This is the best medicine we could possibly take. We need to take it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be so healing. You know, we're so good at helping, again, so good at helping others, you know, to the point even in a therapeutic way, or even in a therapeutic way, helping other people in the therapeutic sense. And do we do it for ourselves? How often do we not?
Yeah.
Looking at the time, should we do the thought experiment?
Yeah.
So I'll read that out. It says, this is on page 233. Have you already started to notice that any lingering sense you may have had that there's something to get to, somewhere to get to, and that there's better than here was an illusion, that the search is over? I have noticed, yes.
Yeah. The search is over. I might realize that I haven't found things, but indeed I have indeed for many things realized that I just don't even have to search for them anymore, because they're already there.
Yeah, I already know what I think I don't know. It's flat almost that when you think you need to read the next page of a book because obviously the answer's there, or buy the next book or go on the next course, or it's seeing through all that. It's seeing through, no, if you want to read a book or go on a course, do it for enjoyment, because you want to, not because you think there's some golden nugget in it that you need to get before you can have the perfect life. So yeah, I think seeing through that when it comes up, that actually, no, do I really want to? Because I want to, not because I think there's something in it. Yeah.
Something that really comes up for me a lot is all these things. When I think about them for myself, that's one thing, but then I realize them also, it's the same for everybody else. So, you know, I always talk about my kids, but, you know, the search is over for my kids, like for my clients, like when I'm meeting with a client, knowing that they're already there, like their search is over. They don't know it yet, but that's where I'm going to be pointing them to as we work together. And me knowing it for them has some intrinsic value. It's knowing that people aren't broken, people don't need to be fixed. They're certain, they're already have everything they need. Is just such a weight off.
It's also powerful, right? Because if you, the person, if you hold at the highest sense of appreciation and love and gratitude, the person that you have in front of you, they will automatically move up to that level.
Yeah. Jamie, I can't remember if it was what course it was on recently, but he said something like, you're either trying to bring your client into your version of the world, or they're bringing you into theirs.
Yeah.
And it's like, and if my version of the world is that we're already where we need to be, we already have everything we need, we're already okay. I don't need to get sucked into their world of everything's terrible. It's funny because I'm thinking now, this is what I've been trying to model for my sister. She's been battling with the insulation company. It's like, it's okay. Everything will be fine.
Yeah. She can deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
No problem. It certainly will take a lot of weight off your shoulders, Greg, when she gets there.
Yeah, for sure. Was that a good place to leave it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Sheila, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Having you here with us. All right, we'll see everyone again next week. Take care.